to Fiberchats. My name is Irina, I'm the host here, and my guest today needs no introduction, but I'll introduce you anyway. It's Tony from TL Yarns.
Hi everyone.
Okay, so I'm a huge, did I say huge, enormous fan? And I think not only because what you do, you crocheting, design, all of these things, but how much you do. So that blows my mind because you're doing YouTube, you're teaching classes, you share your stories, you sell yarn, all of that. Tell me how it starts. Tell me your fiber story. Tell me how you got into this whole world of fiber.
Sure, yeah. Well, I learned to crochet from my mom when I was a teenager. My very first project was a granny square Afghan, and granny squares just have always held a really big part of my heart. So I learned as a teenager, put it away for about a decade, and picked it back up in my early 20s. As a hobby, just something to do. I was job hunting at the time and I just needed something to do in my free time. But eventually it became kind of a side hustle once I got a day job and I started working and everything. I did craft shows, I did classes, I did consignment, I did everything. I think early on I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do in fiber. So it's like, I'll just do a little bit of everything. And eventually I landed on design because I started designing things for my craft show booth. And then I really enjoyed it. I learned about digital patterns and I was like, oh, I can literally make money in my sleep. And I was like, I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So,
but you know what I loved? Okay, so I watched, I told you, if you see spike in your views, that's been me today from 5:30, watching from the beginning. And there's a lot, if you guys haven't subscribed yet to TL Yarns, you go, I'll put the link under the description of this video and click that subscribe button, you'll thank me later.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if you don't follow her on Instagram, you're missing half of the story, so follow her on Instagram as well.
Yes, there's
so I was watching that, and the thing is, yes, you're a designer, yes, you sell things, right? Yes, it's a business, but you give so much information for free.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is one episode that I watched today where you were explaining 10 sites where you can find free patterns, so you don't have to pay anything.
Absolutely.
And it's a little bit almost counterintuitive because you would think, well, this lady is in the business, she's trying to make a living. Why would you give so much free information out there? Tell me your thought process. Tell me how
I guess my process there is, I think there's room for crochet for everybody, right? So regardless of what your socioeconomic status is or what your disposable income looks like, you should be able to participate in this sandbox with everyone else.
Right.
There are parts of this craft that are expensive and you can't really avoid it. You know, yarn is expensive, tools can get expensive, traveling to events can get expensive. So it's like, why not save a little bit of money where you can? And also, if you've got a fun idea but you don't know how to execute it and you're looking for a pattern, the price of it shouldn't be a deterrent.
Right.
So I just wanted to share that because I think sometimes when you have those free resources, it's a really nice introduction to the craft for people. You know, maybe they're earlier on in their process and they're not fully ready to invest yet, so why not get something for free? And I'm happy to share that information because I think everybody should know. We should know what the resources are.
And you actually have a free pattern on your Instagram and on your website that people can go and try to do something that your design, but a free design.
Yeah, I have dozens of free patterns on my blog already, which I love being able to offer that as a service. I work with lots of amazing companies, so I get compensated for my work and I don't feel the need to pass on any costs to my audience. So they can access a paid version of those patterns, but there's also a free version out there if they want to access it too.
Well, tell me your first deal that you closed with the yarn company. Tell me how it started, how you became so big.
Funny enough, the reason I quit my day job back in 2017 is because I got an amazing offer to work with Lion Brand. And they were one of the first companies I wanted to work with. Funny story how I got on their radar. I was posting on Instagram constantly. And every single time I would use their yarns, I would tag them. So, I mean, I was flooding their DMs, I'm sure, with just tags for posts and stories and everything. And this was before I asked them for anything. I was like, I'm here, I'm using your product, people are loving it and enjoying it. So I gave them the proof before the relationship even started. So that was kind of my first foray into working with these more established companies, and Lion Brand is still an amazing partner.
Well, you know what was my first stop at H&H?
Yeah.
I went to Thiago and I said, I'll pay for needles. I just want to be part of your company. I love your needles so much because every time I need something, it's you know, most of the times it's with their needles. I'm
Yeah.
a huge fan, and I was just telling them, professing my love for them, and I don't even care like if we have a deal. I just love your needles. You know,
That's
so it's
amazing.
like,
Yeah, there
fun.
are certain brands that you can't help but like be attracted to. They have like a strong product or they have great marketing. And I think as independent creators and designers, it's a great opportunity for us to get our names out there too.
Right.
So it's like, why not, you know, hitch your wagon to these folks because they're looking for people like us to help promote their product and bring it to their audience as well.
Well, you do more than that. So
Yeah.
I saw this story where you were frustrated with the Tunisian hooks on the market,
Yep.
and you couldn't find anything that like was fitting your hand exactly and
Mhm.
done to your specification. And then somebody reached out to you and said, "Okay, describe me your
Yeah.
perfect Tunisian hook," and
Yeah.
like they manufactured it, right?
Mm-hmm.
How often things like that happen that you like you come up with some frustrating situation
Mhm.
when something doesn't work and people take that into consideration?
You know, interestingly enough, I don't want to take too much credit. I definitely feel like I'm on the leading edge of like influencers in that Tunisian crochet space. So I definitely had input on creating that product. But it is something that I talked about for a very long time. So it made sense that somebody would eventually feel that need. But I would definitely say like between those hooks and there's also been some yarns that like I've used and they've gotten discontinued and I've really made a stink about it. And then like a few months later, you know, they'll come back out. But I think that's all for the benefit of the community. This
Right.
isn't just a personal thing like I want these hooks, you know, this is a product that's for everybody. And there are certain things that come out on the market that either sell out or are no longer available. And for whatever reason, these companies don't end up bringing back the things that we really want. So it takes people who have the voice to say, this is what we want. I'm speaking on behalf of an entire community
Right.
and, you know, hoping that they'll fill that need.
Well, let's talk about your entire community.
Okay.
Because you do a lot of like questioning of the community about
Yeah.
what they like, what questions they have about certain materials, or like what's their frustrations, right? And
Yes.
then you talk about it on your channel.
Yep.
So when you do review of a product, you're like, well, this person said that, but like this is what I think about this. So you always
Definitely.
bring this community into your channel.
Yeah.
Is that by design? Is that just
Yeah.
accidentally happen? Like,
Oh no, this is like completely intentional because before I'm a business owner, before I'm an influencer, before I'm any of that, I'm a maker. I got into this industry because crochet is what I love to do. So I am part of the community. So I speak on behalf of the community. So I speak about it from the perspective of somebody who wants to make these things.
Right.
So I'm always polling my audience because I'm like, these are my peers, these are my friends, and their thoughts are my thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, so I love reviewing products and getting their input before I even review it to make sure I cover the things that they most want to know about.
well, when you being approached by companies to review the product,
Yeah.
do you feel that you have to give a good review just because they give you a free product? Like how
Yeah.
much that influences your review?
Sure. I think it's important to be kind, but it's also important to be honest. And again, since I'm speaking on behalf of my audience, of my community, I need to give them my real feelings about things. I can't sugarcoat it just because, you know, a brand is giving me some money. Like that would be, I think that would be disingenuous because they're giving me the money because I have an influence over my community, but I need to be honest with them. Otherwise, my word doesn't mean anything. It's just a commercial at that point.
But I also find that like a lot of times when you talk about certain product, you say like this is what usually works for me, but for other
Yep.
people like this would be a great feature.
Sure.
So there, because they're all different, right?
Yes,
like what works for
absolutely.
you like completely doesn't work for somebody else and
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah.
And I think it's like you're doing a great job with showing how it's like it can fit those specific parameters, but not your
For sure.
ideal thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of tools and yarns out there, and everything isn't for everyone. There are things that I've tried out in like 2015 that I try again in 2023, and I didn't like it then, but I kind of love it now, you know? So our tastes change even as
Right.
individuals. So I recognize that just because something is out and I don't like it doesn't mean it's a bad product. I just can say my perspective. I can say my opinion.
Well, you said it's an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
What's your yarn stash and your tool collection look like nowadays?
Oh, it's a little out of control if I'm being honest. I recently moved, so I have a studio in like my guest bedroom, and I've kind of reached the threshold of kind of how much I need to be putting into that space. So I regularly do de-stashes. I get a lot of products from companies or things that I'll review. I'll get stuff from Joanne just to make a video about it. So a lot of that stuff I have to end up cycling out. But my personal stash, I would I would say I absolutely love it. It's very representative of me, but it's a little bit bigger than I'd like it to be.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Like, what does the yarn have to, what hoops does it have to jump through to make it into your personal stash collection?
I mean, color is a big thing for me. There are certain colors that I always gravitate towards. There are things that I like to use, and there are colors that I like to wear. So I have a lot of those in my stash. I'm always looking for kind of new innovations in yarn as well. I know boucle and kind of those fuzzier and more tactile yarns are really popular right now. So I like to try out the new things. I also got really heavy into the mini skein trend.
Oh, nice.
So I've still got like 2 giant drawers full of minis. So I like to try different things that are in the colors and the kind of textures that I like.
So another thing I saw on your channel was your love of temperature blankets and how you do it every year. Tell me the story. Like, how did you get into that? Like, what was your first blanket and how does it change from year to year?
Sure. So I originally heard about temperature blankets just on a random Pinterest search. I saw them come up as a trend that was happening in crochet back in like 2017, 2018. I'd never tried it because, like most people, they look at it as like this really big investment. You're stitching on something for the entire year, and that can feel really daunting. So I kind of kept my eye on it for a couple years, saw a few different designs that people were coming out with, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready to try it. Like, I'm ready to go for it. So my very first temperature blanket I did in collaboration with We Crochet, and it's a just Tunisian crochet rose. It's like 4 or 5 strips, and every 3 rows is a different color based on the temperature outside. I adored that project. Like, I fell in love with it, and even though it's really, really big, you know what the end goal is. You know how many rows you're gonna have to do, how many colors you're gonna go through and everything. So it's not as random as it seems.
No, let's hold on.
Yeah.
Let's back up.
Sure.
Are you doing it day by day? Do you start January 1st, see the temperature at 12 p.m. on your phone, or like, are
you know what? I am not that neurotic about it, because I think it's that kind of diligence that makes it not fun anymore, right? Like, we have to keep a big project like that entertaining. So no, I was not working on it every day. I was not tracking my like dates at a certain time or whatever. I have a website that I go to that gives me historic temperature, and I would usually work on it once a week. Sundays, I would have like a certain block of time I would sit down and work on my blanket. And that was the system that worked for me. I think for anybody, you really have to personalize this blanket to make it fun and work on it all year.
And I'll tell you why I ask you. So I did one temperature blanket last year. It was designed by Soraya Hussein. So she asked me to test knit it for her, and it's like a year project. And I was like, well, I guess I can do 2 lines per day.
Sure.
It was so stressful to me. I wanted to knit ahead. I wanted to like finish the months or something, right? And so that was like the thing. I was like, you know what? I'll wait for until the end of the week, and then I'll look at all the temperatures, and then I'm gonna
do it all at once.
For like one sitting.
I mean, I don't know many people who can work on the same project every single day.
No, there were people who like really enjoyed those 2 lines a day.
Yeah.
There were people like that.
That's
I was
wonderful.
not one of them. I'm just like, I do not have patience.
No, I don't
doing
either.
2 lines a day and then waiting for the next day. I just like, I don't have it in me.
I mean, I think that's the wonderful thing about this community, right? Like, everybody does things so differently. Like, we have this yarn thing that unites us all, but everybody goes about it in a different way. I personally could not stitch on a blanket every single day for a year. It's impossible. But I know that there are people that do, you know, and more power to them. It's just not for me.
So how do you divide your day? Like, you wake up in the morning, you have to do YouTube, you have to do all the promotional things, you have to do your Instagram and whatever. And then you have to find time to crochet actually and like bring some pleasure into your life. Like, how does that happen?
So one of the things that I found that really helps for me is like every single morning when I get to my desk, I plan out my day. I write out what my main priorities are, the things that I would like to get done. And then I have like a list of to-dos of like things I would like to get to someday. It's like, if I have an extra 30 minutes, here are a couple things that I'd like to do. So I really break it down by priorities. I'll get those big things out of the way first, and then whatever else needs to get done that day. And I break it up over the course of the week. So like, I'm not recording for YouTube every day, or I'm not doing Instagram stuff every day. I'll do that work in batches. And I think it's maybe kind of caught up with me how much that I do and how well I want to be able to do all of those things. So I'm trying to incorporate more help in my business, bringing on some contractors. I actually just recruited a couple video editors to help with my YouTube channel, make sure I can stay consistent and top quality. So yeah, I'm starting to let go a little bit more of the things that I was always doing myself, because I recognize that there are incredibly talented people, even here in this community, who have talents outside of just knit and crochet.
Is it hard to like relinquish control, like give it to somebody else to do?
You know what? It's hard initially, but then you realize how talented these folks are and how they're actually doing it better than I was doing it. And I'm like, oh, this is not as hard as I thought it would be. I mean, I've been doing YouTube since 2017, and this is my first foray in having somebody edit my videos. Because again, I am used to having that control, and I want it to look a certain way because I want to be represented in a particular way. But what's nice is I was able to poll my audience on YouTube and say, hey, I need this help. And people reached out, and now, oh my gosh, it was such an amazing feeling, because even the vulnerability of saying in such a public space, I need some help, and people saying, okay, girl, I got you. Like, that was scary for me because I don't do that often. Like, you can ask my husband, it infuriates him. But yeah, it's one of those places where I was like, okay, I don't need to be doing this all by myself. How can I bring on some talented folks to take this off my plate and free me up to do the other things that I really love within my business?
Let's talk about Mr. TL Yarns.
Yeah.
Is he surprised by your success?
I don't think he's surprised. I think what we just realized is that he didn't have an understanding of the full breadth of the work that I do. So like, even when I was coming here to H&H, I had to explain to him once I got here what this was and why it was important for me to be here. Because in his head, he's just like, oh, my wife's going to Chicago for a few days. You know, so he's finally getting on board with like understanding my work, as opposed to just being like, oh, she's out here doing this thing. And even for his job, I don't know exactly what he does on a day-to-day basis, but we've both made an effort to just be a little bit more present with each other's lives, our work lives at least. But regardless of that, he's always been 1,000% supportive of the work that I do, and just kind of let me have the latitude to see where this takes me.
Does he know the terminology, like the half double crochet? Like, is he on top of that?
He recognizes it, but he doesn't know it. Funny enough, there's actually a video out there of him reading a crochet pattern, and it is the funniest thing ever, because like, if you actually try to read a crochet pattern in words, it just makes no sense.
Right.
It's hilarious. So
code.
yes,
it's those who need to
exactly.
know.
I was like, it's a whole different language, and it's only for us.
I saw a video of you talking about mental health and the power of meditation and how you needed it in your life. And you said that you don't share your troubles and you keep it inside. Do you ever get burnout? Do you ever get like tired of trying to be out there and feeling responsible to this community, to constantly be smiling and be present and be upbeat and be enthusiastic? Does it get to you?
I mean, I'm of course, yes. I've definitely had moments of burnout. Actually, like August of a couple years ago, August of 2021, because if you think about it, over the pandemic, the craft community was like inundated with new people.
Right.
And as an educator, I saw it as my responsibility to be one of those ambassadors, be like, hey, everybody, like, here's what we're doing. Let's get really excited about it. So it was go, go, go for several months. And by that August of the following year, I was at my wit's end, and I had to take a couple months off just to kind of recoup. Because I think what ends up happening is we get so wrapped up in producing the content and being everything for everyone, we start to forget what we started doing this for. I was no longer enjoying crochet at that time, and I was like, that was my indicator of like, something is wrong here. I need to take a step back and recalibrate. So whenever I feel like I'm getting frustrated with my work, or I'm getting kind of down in the weeds on a project, I have to just refocus and remind myself, like, why am I here? What can I let go of? What am I taking on that's maybe a little overwhelming? So, you know, I definitely have those times, but I am learning to relax about it a little bit more, lean into the things that I really love and the things that my audience responds to. And in this really kind of fast-paced, short-form video worlds, like, our attention spans are so short, but we can't play into kind of the worst facets of our society, you know? So Yes, I love making long form videos for my YouTube, and that's what I enjoy doing. So I don't lean so much into like the reels and the shorts. I'll
Right.
do a bit of that because I know it's important, but the meat and potatoes of my work, that gets to the heart of what my audience wants.
If you described yourself to somebody who doesn't know you, who never
Mhm.
met you, what would be the first thing that comes to mind?
Wow, that's tough. The first thing, I think the very first thing is I am a community advocate. I love crochet not only as a craft, but the people that are part of it. And I like being in it, and I like being a force for moving it forward. So beyond creating videos or teaching or designing, just being around the people that have a similar interest of mine, that have a passion. Like when I get excited about a yarn and I'm around people that aren't yarny, they kind of look at me sideways.
Right.
And I'm like, you just don't get it. Like you clearly don't get it. So I love that feeling of being around my people, here in this craft space. So I think community advocate would come to mind first.
I swear, like, unless you're doing craft
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah.
it's just bizarre. Like,
Yes.
people don't understand how, like, knitting or crocheting
Mhm.
can be your entire life. You wake up in
Yes.
the morning and that's the first thing you
all
think
you wanna
about,
do, yep.
and you go to sleep and you dream of
Yeah.
crocheting, or you dream of new designs, or you
Mhm.
dream about new videos, and you're like, oh, this is a
Yes.
great idea, I should remember
Yes.
it. Let
Oh
me
my
wake
gosh,
up
all the
and write
time.
it down.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like when you're a professional in this space and you also have a passion for the craft itself, it's always on your mind. So like I keep little notebooks all over my house, so when I have ideas, like I gotta write it down or I'll lose them. But yeah, it's kind of this all-consuming thing, but in a great way, because it's like that's the joyful, exciting, kind of innovative part of being in this business.
Well, you look at yourself back to when you started YouTube, right? Your
Mhm.
first video,
Yeah,
and you think about how far you came.
yeah, yeah.
When you go back to those videos, do you flinch? Do you like, oh my God, like what was I doing? Or is it endearing? It's like,
I think it is endearing because I almost look at that like it was a different person, because it kind of was. I mean, this is almost what 7, 8 years ago that I started, and I look at, Tony of 2017. I'm like, oh, sweetie, like, like you were, because I was doing the best I could with what I had. Like I was of that kind of generation of YouTubers that was like, I have a phone and I have something to say, so I'm just gonna put it out there, and whoever wants it will receive it. And over time, I've saw the need to improve certain parts of my process, but that kind of core belief of like sharing my knowledge with my audience still fuels me, same way that it did from day one.
right. Well, how were you learning? Because it's one thing to just like go there for the first video and say, like, think about some imaginary person on the
Yeah.
other end, like you're probably talking to your mom or some your sister or something, and you're trying just to show your crochet, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is what I made today, and this is what my plan for this channel.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's a whole different animal, like to keep going for so many years and keep creating and keep reinventing yourself all the
Yeah.
time. How, like, how do you do that? Like, how did you learn that?
I think just staying engaged with this community is super important. Like not getting so in my head or in my own projects, or so focused on just what I'm doing, and understanding the trends and the conversations that are happening with crochet. Like even right now, everywhere around this convention, I'm hearing like crochet is trending like crazy.
Right.
And I've been in this space for a long time. It's always been trending for me. So to understand how the conversation is changing and what people are talking about now, as opposed to what they were talking about in 2017.
Right.
So it's like just keeping my ear to the ground, staying engaged and talking with people constantly, just to see like what are we as a community interested in right now. And there are also like these evergreen topics as people who are brand new coming to this craft, what do they want to know? And really using that as my inspiration.
So you came to H&H. What was your mission? What was your goal for this show?
I think my mission was to just get reinvigorated about this craft and understanding what's coming next for crochet. Myself and my peers who are in the content creation space, in the design space, understand that we kind of have to stay a couple steps ahead of what's coming in this industry. So I needed to be here to see, again, what conversations are being had, what trends are coming up, what is kind of being phased out, and you know, what do we need to start distancing ourselves from. So I felt it's my professional responsibility to be here again on behalf of my community to say, hey guys, I was here for 3 days and here are all the things that I learned.
Okay, share it with my viewers. Tell
Yeah.
them, tell us what's trending here.
Okay, so I actually just came out of a Crafts Trends presentation, and a few things that I heard is that embroidery on crochet is really huge right now. We're also moving back into some of the more jewel tones and like those really lush colors, pastels, especially for fall, winter, not as much of a trend anymore, but they might come back next year for the spring. Also hearing about like outside of crochet, there's like paper crafts and embroidery and macrame, but macrame in a very interesting way, like on clothing or like in home decor. So there's a lot of these older crafts that we're just looking at with fresh eyes. And it's like, how can we take like raffia and make it a more interesting bag or more interesting wall art, you know, things like that.
I just saw this one supplier who was selling cork,
Yeah.
and it's super thin and it's almost like a fabric, and you
Ooh.
can cut it into strips and crochet bags with it, and it's like absolutely incredible. Like I've never
Yes.
seen anything like that. So to me, like
Yeah.
my mind is on fire here.
Yeah,
I see all these new
absolutely.
ideas.
It's
you know?
so inspirational. I think whenever you can kind of reimagine how a material is used, you're going to have a really good idea on your hands. Yeah.
Do you think coming here it's more of a social playground or business kind of thingy?
I think we're all looking at this from a business perspective. We are all technically at work, right? Because we are business people in this industry. But we never leave our passion at home, right? So there are people that I see here that I know from other venues that I'm really excited to see and kind of pick their brain and understand like what is it that you're looking forward to. So I'm definitely here as a representative of TL Yarn Crafts, but Tony is very excited about the things that she's learning here and the products that I get to try and the people I get to like hear these fresh perspectives from. So it's a little bit of both. Like you, with such a creative field, you can't turn off the art of it, you know, even when you incorporate the business piece.
When people see you, they are intimidated because they think you are this huge YouTuber, you are a famous designer, you made it in the industry.
Yeah.
How do you feel when people come to you and say, oh my God, I love your channel?
I'm always incredibly flattered because I do work hard at it and I appreciate the recognition for the recognition's sake. Like I'm not the kind of person that's like, why isn't everyone talking to me? You know, that's not what I'm here for. But I do appreciate that the joy that I put into my work resonates with folks, and I think that's what gets them so excited. So it always makes me happy to be recognized. I think if anything, I kind of wish these platforms would just take all the numbers away, like just let the content exist and let people experience it without like the metrics of subscribers and views and all of that, because it kind of detracts from the message. You know, I want people to just appreciate all of the roles that we play in this fiber community, because just as excited as they are to meet me, I'm excited to meet them.
Well, the numbers are also funny because I watched your video and it wasn't that long ago when you were like, guys, please subscribe because I'm trying to get to 500,000, right?
Yep.
And then I'm gonna do this huge giveaway and it's
Yep.
gonna be exciting. And here we are today and you're way over 600,000 and it's like, and by the time this is gonna air, you might be over 1 million. Is there like a goal? Yeah, please go subscribe.
Please subscribe. Yeah. Is there a goal? Not especially, because I'm in this for the long haul. As long as these platforms exist, I'm going to be on them. I feel like there is an infinite amount of stuff that I want to say. Like my list of the types of videos that I want to make is like longer than my arm. So I'm not so concerned with the numbers. I don't have a goal per se. It's like, how can I communicate this message effectively? How do I reach the people who need to hear this? And how do I contribute to the direction that this industry is moving in? I am grateful that I have so many people's ear that I am able to share information that they want on a regular basis. So no, I don't get too wrapped up in the numbers. I know it's important to keep an eye on just to make sure, again, that message can get out there. But I don't really have a goal. Not necessarily, no.
Okay, give me advice. Like
Yeah.
I'm a new YouTuber, like
Sure.
I'm a baby YouTuber in comparison, right? Like I only started like less than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm learning and I'm trying to find the resources of like the better lighting and the better camera and the better mic and what have you, right?
Sure.
But there is more than that to it, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, tell me something, share your wisdom, infinite wisdom of like when people trying to get into YouTube now, what can they do? How can they improve?
I think one of the main things we can do to make our YouTube channels interesting to other people is not be afraid to be 100% ourselves. Like, show your full passion, talk about the things that you love, and don't be afraid of somebody disagreeing with you. Like, we're not here to appease everyone. I've had people in my comments say they completely disagree and they don't like this product or they don't work with this company, and that's just a conversation starting, you know? Like, we're not going to be everybody's favorite person. And I think over the years, I've learned that the people who want to hear what I have to say are going to show up. My philosophy at this point is just turn the camera on. Like, wherever you're at, if you feel comfortable, just turn the camera on and talk to that camera like you would a beloved friend, or, you know, whoever that person is that makes you feel safe and secure, that you can share your thoughts with, because that's who that video is going to reach, the people that really care and want to connect with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when I started, there were like maybe like a handful of people who were like very enthusiastic about me starting the channel.
Yeah.
And those handful of people grew into bigger number, and now there are people who watch every episode I put out there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you guys know who you are, and I love you all dearly. How did your community grow? Because it's like at some point it becomes almost unmanageable, right? Like you can't answer every comment.
No, you can't. Unfortunately, yeah. That's the kind of bummer of it, because I would definitely say when my channel was smaller and I could connect with everyone, that was like, it was just a really nice kind of motivational part of this whole business. So now it's gotten to the point where there's a lot more people part of the community. I can't get to all of the comments, or I can't exist on all of the platforms. But I know the places where my audience is most engaged. And a lot of the most engaged people are on a few different places. So I'm gonna get them somewhere. If I don't answer their comment on YouTube, maybe I'll find them in my Facebook group, or maybe I'll get them on Instagram. So I try not to get too bogged down on just this idea that I can't reach everyone, but you know, whatever it is that you have to say it 100%, and they'll get what they need from it. They'll be fine.
You guys know we love you, right?
Love you guys.
Well, I'm so grateful you agreed to meet with me today and share
course,
your
Rena.
story with me. It was so I mean, it was one of my dreams to like run into you in some festival. So when I saw you, I was like, dreams do come true.
Oh, you're the best. You're the best. Thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. You asked some amazing questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you.